So Nabiha, how would you like to see the future of journalism in 15 to 20 years?
In 15 to 20 years, the dream is that we'll have journalism rooted in facts, rooted in data, rooted in science, and we'll have audiences that don't just get their news from one place. They'll get it from an array of places that they trust that, again, are rooted in those facts. And I think that is the future we'd like to aspire to so people can make informed decisions about the world around them.
So tell me how the Markup fits into that future scenario.
So the Markup is a nonprofit newsroom that investigates how technology is reshaping the world around us. And we investigate the technology you know, Facebook, Apple, and Google, and the technology you don't know, tenant screening algorithms, the way algorithms decide who gets to be an Uber driver or work in a particular way. And in order to do that work, what we do is that we build these tools that rigorously look at the data on these platforms. So not just, oh, we interviewed 2 or 3 people and got this, or talked to one source, or looked at 5 web pages. We will do things like we examine 88,000 web pages and then deduce some conclusion for the public. And when we do that, we'll build a tool to collect data. We'll send it out to the tool and its results, our hypotheses and our initial conclusions to experts to say, what do you think about our methodology of how we built this? What do you think about the tool we designed, and have them kick the tires, tell us where we're right, wrong, could improve. And then when we publish, we show our work. So the public can trust us. They can trust the method, even if they don't know who we are.
So you say you show the public how you collate the data. How does that actually work in practice on the page?
So we will link to something at the top of all of our investigations that say, click here for our show your work. And you just click onto it and you can see a full methodology. If you really want to get into the weeds, we link to our GitHub, our code repository. So you can even go and take the code and try to replicate the results yourself. For those who don't want that, we have a long explainer in plain English of here's what we did, here's how we built it, here's how we checked it, and here's how we think our work is really built around the scientific method.
And you're confident that, if you like, algorithm-driven journalism is going to increase trust?
I would say, I think transparency-oriented journalism is what builds trust. I think we have to recognize that the public doesn't necessarily trust journalists. They don't trust the media, in part because they don't understand what it is. And for us, that means we are very transparent about the methodology that we have. I'd encourage other media outlets to be transparent about the methodologies they have too.
Then take a New York Times journalist in 2021. What you would like in 2025 is that journalist to be using an algorithm as the basis of his or her research, and from that, then go interview people and say, this is the data we've put together. Can I have your comment? Is that correct? Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I think that's the right track. Now, when we talk about algorithms and algorithmic sort of governance of our world, I think this is the way forward. You have to sort of meet the technology with your own technology and really build that kind of rigor into it. It might not map onto reporting about, a local school procedural hearing, for example. But when we talk about tech, I do think that that's the ammunition we need to bring to the table.
Well, it would also work for policy formulation too, because the policy formulation would be based. It would be harder to argue ideology if you've got the data to back you up.
Exactly. That's exactly the theory. It just moves the terrain of debate from ideology or opinion to, look, these are the facts we have. If you want to come with better data, that's a discussion we can have. But right now, these conversations happen in the absence of hard data, or at least something close to it.
Yes, the challenge you'll have is, well, as Kellyanne Conway said, there are alternate facts. You can get the facts to fit your story.
That's true. We'd like to say, though, that when you're talking about that level of facts, the difference between getting 8 facts and then facts from 88,000 websites, just a little bit of a different tone and tenor,
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if we have a repeat of the Trump scenario that we've had over the last 4 years, whether the algorithm will actually make a substantial change, or this trawling of the internet for the assembly of data will make a massive difference, except we'll get stronger arguments and greater polarization on both sides.
Polarization in part happens because we live in different universes of facts, right? So at the Markup, we built a tool called Citizen Browser. What Citizen Browser does is that we have a representative sample of the United States, Trump voters and Biden voters, Blacks and whites, men and women, and many other flavors besides. And we ask them to log into Facebook just once. And through that, we extract actually all the stories that are being presented to them through the Facebook algorithm. And we've created a dashboard called Split Screen where you can see that difference. The difference is clear that Trump voters and Biden voters live in a different universe of facts. They're being presented different stories with different angles. And I think for us, identifying exactly what that looks like and saying, here, this isn't just my opinion. It's not Kellyanne Conway's opinion or mine. This is what it looks like when you have 2,000 people in a sample and their worlds are totally different. So I would say that I think our data-driven approach helps pierce the bubble of polarization to say, this is starting in alternate realities and we have to start to unify those facts together.
So I wonder about the pressure to actually take journalism out of the equation. A few years ago, people needed journalism to actually get information because the only source of information was really fairly limited: television, newspapers, and radio, relatively limited. Now there is so much information that can be Googled despite journalists. And just take the information we can get now on how to get our vaccination. You can really bypass journalists altogether. And in some ways, it's more accurate to bypass journalists altogether and go to the government websites for the best contemporary advice. I'm just wondering if your mining of data, if we aren't doing journalists out of a job.
It is a great question. And I think the key to the future, I imagine, actually depends on something you just said in an earlier question. People feel overwhelmed. You Google something and you're like, well, this site says this site says that, this site says something else. What do I do? And so you have people who gravitate back to their networks of knowledge, like ask a friend, is this the right website for this? And I think that's where journalism really has its opportunity, right? You want to become the trusted interlocutor. But that requires doing a lot of trust building work with your audience, a lot of very focused outreach. It's not a write it and they will come. It means that you really have to be very thoughtful about cultivating your audience. We can be that filter when the whole world is so unimaginably overwhelmed with information, which will only continue to happen.
Yeah, so you're an optimist or a pessimist?
I'm such an optimist. Doesn't it show through? I'm such an optimist about the future of journalism. I think it will undergo great change, and I don't think everyone will make it, to be very honest, right? I think there's a lot of ways of doing things that won't carry forward. For example, I think a lot of the historical kind of both sides journalism, this side says this side says that, you decide whatever you want. I think people are realizing that not only is that unsatisfactory, the both sides often, neither side really relies on enough. And also there's more than two sides to any issue. I think there is a demand for deeper, better investigated narrative and explanatory journalism. So I think there's a category of press coverage, the horse race coverage, that won't make it. I don't think people need it. But the deeper work, uncovering truth, I think that has a place for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.